I will never forget the moment I stood in the middle of that upscale restaurant, chandeliers glittering overhead, the sound of applause echoing from dozens of strangers around me. My boyfriend of 5 years, Kyle, was down on one knee in front of me holding a small velvet box open in his trembling hands. But when I looked inside at the ring, my heart did not flutter with joy. It went cold, not because the ring was not beautiful in its own way, but because it represented everything that had felt wrong in our relationship for the past 2 years. He was asking me to spend forever with him, but he could not even invest in a symbol that showed he valued me. I said no. I walked out of that restaurant and left Kyle kneeling there in stunned silence along with everyone else who had been waiting for me to say yes. Before I go any further, I would really love to know where you're watching this from. If you have ever been in a situation where saying no felt like the bravest thing you could possibly do, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what most people did not know about that night is going to completely change how you see this story. Kyle and I met when I was 24 years old at an art gallery opening in Portland. He was a software engineer, 30 at the time, stable, intelligent, funny, in a quiet way that made me feel comfortable. Those first 3 years were genuinely wonderful. We traveled together on road trips down the coast, cooked elaborate meals in his tiny kitchen, talked for hours about building a life together. We even joked about buying a smaller house near the beach someday, somewhere we could hear the ocean from our bedroom window. I worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech startup, made decent money, and prided myself on my financial independence. My family lived back on the East Coast in Boston, but I had moved to Portland for work and fallen in love with the city. Everyone around us said we were the perfect couple. My mother would call from Boston and say things like, "You two just fit together so naturally." My friends adored Kyle. He seemed responsible, thoughtful, the kind of man you could build a future with. But somewhere around year 4, small cracks started to appear. Kyle began making little comments about the way I spent my money. When I bought myself a leather handbag that cost $700 after getting a promotion at work, Kyle raised his eyebrows and said, "That seems like a waste. A cheaper bag holds things just as well." When I suggested we take a trip to a luxury resort in California to celebrate our 5th anniversary, he shot the idea down immediately. We should be saving for the future, not spending on unnecessary luxury. At first, I told myself Kyle was just practical, that he was good with money and thinking ahead. But as time went on, I started to realize this was not just about being frugal. Kyle drove a 15-year-old car that barely started in the mornings, even though he could easily afford a new one. He wore clothes from college that were faded and torn at the edges. He refused to replace anything unless it was completely destroyed. I respected saving money, truly, I did, but there was a difference between being smart with finances and refusing to invest in quality of life. I started noticing a fundamental difference in our values. I believed in working hard and enjoying the rewards of that work in investing in experiences and things that brought joy. Kyle believed in accumulating as much money as possible and never spending it. One night over dinner, I asked him what his long-term goals were. He said, "I want to retire early, maybe by 35, and have a lot of money in the bank." I asked, "And then what will we do with that money?" He looked at me like I had asked a strange question. "Keep it safe," he said. That answer bothered me more than I wanted to admit. What was the point of having money if we never used it to build the life we wanted? After 5 years together, my friends and family started asking the inevitable question. When is Kyle going to propose? My mother called every month with some variation of the same concern. Sweetheart, it has been 5 years. Are you sure he is serious about marriage? My best friends Natalie and Brooke would exchange looks when the topic came up, like they were worried but did not want to say it out loud. I found myself defending Kyle constantly. He just wants to make sure we are financially stable first, I would say. But privately, I wondered why he never brought up marriage himself. Then about 3 months before the proposal, I noticed Kyle acting strangely. He started searching things like engagement rings and proposal ideas on his laptop. I saw the browser tabs one evening when he forgot to close them. My heart raced with excitement. Finally, after 5 years, he was ready. Kyle made a reservation at Cascade Room, one of the nicest restaurants in Portland. It was on the second floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. I wore my favorite black dress, spent an hour on my hair and makeup, felt butterflies in my stomach all evening. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. We ordered appetizers, made small talk, but I could feel Kyle's nervousness radiating across the table. He kept fidgeting with his napkin, checking his watch. Halfway through the main course, he suddenly stood up and called for everyone's attention. Excuse me, everyone. I have something important to do. The entire restaurant went quiet. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. People turned in their chairs to look at us. Kyle walked around to my side of the table and got down on one knee. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was happening. 5 years and it was finally happening. Kyle pulled out a small red velvet box and opened it. Inside was a thin silver band with a tiny stone that barely caught the light. It was not gold. It was not a diamond. It looked like cubic zirconia, the kind of ring you might find at a discounted jewelry store. I stared at it, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Kyle began his speech. Emma, you're the love of my life. These past 5 years have been the best of my life. I want to spend forever with you. Will you marry me? Everyone in the restaurant was watching, phones held up, recording the moment. I could not take my eyes off that ring. I was not a materialistic person. I had never expected some giant diamond or an extravagant display. But this was supposed to be a symbol of our commitment of our future together. Kyle was a software engineer making 6 figures. He was not broke. He could have afforded something meaningful, but he chose this. A ring that looked like it cost less than dinner. And suddenly everything clicked into place. I remembered all the times he criticized my spending, all the times he refused to invest in our experiences together, all the times he chose the cheapest option available, not because he had to, but because he believed that was all things were worth. And now, looking at this ring, I realized that was how he saw me too, not worth investing in. Kyle, I said, my voice shaking slightly, where did you buy this ring? His face flushed red. Do not worry about that. What matters is the sentiment behind it. How much did you pay for it? He hesitated. About $150, but it is a nice ring. $150. I stood up slowly. The entire restaurant was still watching, waiting for me to throw my arms around him and say, yes. But I could not do it. I cannot marry someone who values me so little. Kyle looked stunned. What? You spent $800 on a new gaming laptop last month, but you could only spend $150 on an engagement ring. Do you understand what that says? Emma, you're making a scene in front of everyone, he hissed. I looked around at all the faces staring at us, some confused, some already whispering to each other. I looked back at Kyle still on his knee, holding that cheap ring like it was supposed to mean something. No, Kyle, I cannot do this. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving him there in the middle of the dining room. Behind me, I could hear the whispers exploding like fireworks. Oh my God, she said no. Did she just reject him because of the ring? That is so shallow. I stepped outside into the cool Portland night and called an Uber with shaking hands. I did not regret what I had just done, but I knew what was coming next. My phone started buzzing before I even got into the car. A text from Natalie. Emma, what the hell just happened? Kyle is calling me crying. Another from Brooke. Did you really reject him in public? That is so cruel. Within an hour, the story had spread through our entire friend group, and I was the villain. I woke up the next morning to dozens of messages and notifications. Natalie had sent a long text that started with, I cannot believe you humiliated Kyle like that. He spent weeks planning that proposal, and you threw it in his face over a stupid ring. That is disgusting. Brooke had written something similar. You are materialistic and shallow. Kyle deserves better than you. Even the people I barely talked to old college friends who only followed me on social media were commenting on posts. Wow, 5 years and you could not even give him a chance, poor guy. I tried to explain. I sent messages to Natalie and to Brooke trying to make them understand. It was not about the price. It was about what it represents. He does not value me. But neither of them wanted to hear it. Natalie replied, You're just trying to justify your cruelty. Do not contact me again. Brooke blocked me on every platform. I was removed from our group chat. Even a few co-workers who had heard about what happened started looking at me differently in the office like I was some kind of monster. Kyle had told his version of the story first. I proposed to her. I saved up for months to buy a ring, but she rejected me publicly because it was not expensive enough. She only cares about money. And everyone believed him because he was the one kneeling, the one left humiliated in front of a restaurant full of people. I felt completely alone, betrayed by people I thought were my friends, judged by strangers who did not know the full story. I called my mother sobbing so hard I could barely speak. She listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she said quietly, Sweetheart, you did the right thing. But everyone hates me, Mom. They think I'm terrible. Emma, listen to me. This was never about the ring. This is about Kyle not respecting you. I always felt like something was off about him. He was always so calculating, like love was just another transaction he was managing. My mother suggested I look deeper into Kyle's finances, into what he was really doing with his money. A man who's so cheap that he spends $150 on an engagement ring, but $800 on a gaming laptop is hiding something. That night, while Kyle was away on a work trip, I opened his old laptop that he kept at our shared apartment. We had been living together for 2 years and I had never snooped before. But I needed to know the truth. The laptop was not password protected. It opened easily. I went through his emails and found messages from his bank about an offshore savings account. I clicked on the link and nearly fell off my chair. $230,000. Kyle had a secret savings account with over $200,000 in it, and he told me he could not afford a decent engagement ring. I kept digging. I found emails between Kyle and a financial advisor discussing his plan to retire early at 35 just 5 years from now. He wanted to move to a country with a low cost of living somewhere like Thailand or Mexico. In one email, the advisor asked, "What about your partner? Is she on board with this plan?" Kyla's response made my blood run cold. "I have not told her yet. I will handle it after marriage. Once we are married, she will have to go along with it." He had planned our entire future without asking me. He was going to marry me, then tell me we were leaving the country, that I had to give up my career, my family, my friends, to follow him to some cheap retirement destination, and I would have no say in it. I found more emails. Kyle had been researching prenuptial agreements that would protect his assets, ways to keep our finances completely separate, even in marriage. He wanted to make sure I never had access to that $230,000. The $150 ring was not about being broke. It was about Kyle seeing me as an expense to minimize. When Kyle came back from his trip, I confronted him immediately. "Tell me about the $230,000. His face went white. "You went through my laptop to do not change the subject. You have over $200,000 saved, but you bought me a $150 ring. That is my retirement fund. I am saving for our future. A future where you drag me to another country without asking if that is what I want. A future where you control all the money, and I have no say." "Who told you to read my private emails?" His voice was rising now. "Who told you to plan my entire life without including me in the decision? You were going to marry me just so you could control me, were you not? You do not understand finances. I was doing what is best for both of us." "No. You were doing what is best for you. You wanted a wife who would obey, who would follow you wherever you decided to go, who would live the life you mapped out. But I'm not a puppet." "Then we should break up." "Yes, we should. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth." I wrote a detailed post on social media explaining everything. I didn't include specific dollar amounts to protect Kyla's privacy, but I made it clear what had really happened. That Kyle had the financial means to buy a better ring, but chose not to. That he had planned our future without consulting me. That the cheap ring was not the problem. It was a symbol of how little he valued my voice in our relationship. I did not reject Kyle because the ring was cheap, I wrote. I rejected him because after 5 years he still saw me as someone not worth investing in, someone whose opinion did not matter in our shared future. The post went viral. At first people still criticized me, but slowly the comments started to shift. "Wait, if he could afford better but chose not to, that is actually disrespectful." My ex did the same thing, controlled all the money and made me feel guilty for spending anything. It was never about saving, it was about power. A few days later, Natalie sent me a private message. "I needed to talk to you." We met at a coffee shop downtown. Natalie looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with her cup. "I am so sorry, Emma. I should have listened to your side before judging you so harshly." "Why did you believe him so quickly?" "Because he seemed so hurt. And honestly, I thought you were being shallow. But after reading your post and really thinking about it, I realized it was never about money. It was about respect." She paused. "I remember times when Cal would make snide comments about how you spent your own money, like he had a right to judge you. I thought he was just being practical. But now I see it was controlling." Brooke sent an apology through email. She admitted she had jumped to conclusions without hearing my side. A few other friends reached out as well, apologizing for cutting me off so quickly. But not everyone came back, and I was okay with that. I had learned who my real friends were. Through Natalie, I heard that Kyle tried dating other women after we broke up, but the story of his failed proposal had spread throughout our social circles. One woman told her friends that he was obsessively cheap, splitting every bill down to the penny on the first date. Kyle became somewhat isolated in our friend group. 6 months later, he moved to a different city, probably trying to start afresh somewhere. No one knew his story. I didn't feel happy hearing that. I just felt relieved that I had escaped a future that would have made me miserable. After leaving Kyle, I moved into my own apartment. Just me. No roommates, no partner. It was hard at first. 5 years is a long time to be with someone, and I'd gotten used to sharing my space and my life. But gradually, I learned to love my independence. I joined a yoga studio and made new friends who knew nothing about my past. I threw myself into my work and earned a promotion to senior marketing manager. And for the first time in years, I did something just for myself. I booked a 2 week solo trip to Iceland, somewhere I had always dreamed of visiting, but Kyle had refused because it was too expensive. Standing in front of Seljalandsfoss waterfall, watching the water cascade down into the pool below, I felt freer than I had in years. I realized how many small dreams I had given up because Kyle always said that they were not necessary. Now no one was stopping me. A year after breaking up with Kyle, I met someone new. His name was James, an architect I met at a networking event. He was 33, warm, open minded, genuinely kind. We started dating slowly, carefully. I was cautious after everything with Kyle, but James was different in ways that mattered. He asked my opinion on everything from where we should go for dinner to what our future might look like together. One evening, about 8 months into dating, he said something that made me tear up. "I want to build a life with you, Emma. Not for you, with you." That was what I had needed to hear all along. Now, sitting in my apartment looking out of the window, I think about that night in the restaurant 2 years ago. I do not regret walking away for even a second. Saying no in front of all of those people was the hardest and bravest thing I have ever done. I learned that your value is not measured by what someone is willing to spend on you. It is measured by how much they respect you, how much they include you in decisions, how much they see you as an equal partner. A cheap ring is not a problem if it is truly all someone can afford. But a cheap ring, when someone has the means to do better, that is a message. And I heard it loud and clear. I also learned that sometimes you have to stand alone before you can find people who truly understand you. Losing Natalie and Brooke even temporarily hurt deeply. But it taught me that real friendship means listening before judging, supporting even when you do not understand. I do not hate Kyle anymore. I just feel grateful that he showed me who he really was before I married him, before I signed away years of my life to someone who saw me as a line item in his budget rather than a partner in his future. I glanced down at my left hand at the rose gold ring James gave me 6 months ago when he proposed. It is simple, elegant, chosen after he asked me what style I liked best and then spent time finding something that matched my taste. It is not about the price. It is about the thought, the respect, the partnership behind it. I smile remembering his proposal. No public restaurant, no audience. Just the two of us on a hiking trail at sunset where he got down on one knee and said, "I love you and I want to spend my life making decisions together with you." That is what I had been waiting for all along. So let me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from something everyone else thought was perfect only to discover it was the best decision you ever made? Have you ever had to choose between what others expected and what you knew was right for you. I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, or if you know someone who needs to hear that their worth is not determined by how others treat them, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and choosing yourself. Thank you so much for listening to my journey, and I hope it reminds you that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from someone who does not see your worth, because when you do, you make room for someone who does. Wishing you the courage to always choose respect over comfort and the strength to know you deserve a partner who values you fully.